Don't fill out an application online without first talking to the person that is going to be guiding you through the process.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I'll end with that too, because it's ironically enough, it was the thing that I was going to share that I learned in doing this for the last 2 decades that I would have never known in the beginning, and that I see mistake that a lot of people still make even to this day. And I say mistake lovingly because it comes from a good place. You know, like when you're trying to help out a family member, that comes from a good place. You know, you feel like there's an exchange there. Like they're helping me out, and I'm helping them out. I'm helping them out, obviously. Maybe they're starting out in their career or whatever. We talked about it over some parties, so I kind of feel like I got to pay homage. And they're helping me out because they're giving me that trust, right? That blanket of like, okay, I know them. I know they're going to have my best interest. Like, so the trick is, it's like if you unpack that a little bit, right? You've got family member and you've got friend. We just kind of vetted out family member a little bit. So let's hop on to friend. In the friend category, it's so much about image versus reality. And a lot of this I've noticed lives on the social medias right now, right? When you think about it critically, and you wouldn't know this until you've been doing this for a long time, although this could probably be a cut and paste for almost any category of business respectively, you've got this XY axis, okay? On one side of it, you've got time, and on the other side of it, you've got experience, okay? So when you think about it, if someone's brand new in the industry, what do they got a lot of, right? And what do they not have a lot of? So you're watching social media, you're thinking to yourself, I'm about ready to go buy my first, I'm gonna go be a buyer, and you're pulling up, and this one friend of yours is just everywhere, right? They're killing it. They're posting every day. They're on this house, they're on that house, they're an open house. God, so-and-so must be really good at what they do, because the image is that they're everywhere. And the reason is, it may or may not be true, but most of the time, right? It's just because they got a lot of time. Because they're not actually helping a lot of people. So they got a lot of time to do a lot of posts to make themselves look like they're doing a lot of business, but what they lack is the experience. So they're up here, but they're down here, right? Now, conversely, you're going to always want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing. You want the best option out there. Someone who's been doing this for a long time, so they've got that chessboard in their head of being able to see 2, 3, 4 moves down the table, who are always like ninja master assassins in the negotiation category that consult their way through any problems and can oversee the transactional details like the way you'd want that role to be played. But you might not see them a lot because they're out there doing business, right? And they might not be paying somebody a few grand a month to be showing up and doing all the social media things. So they're not that visible. But what's ironic is that's who you really want, because you want their experience. So you got to be really careful in the perception versus reality game, right? So yes, you want somebody who's got experience. Yeah, it's also nice to be able to kind of vet and see third party and know that they're doing stuff, but just be careful, because where those two things meet might not be where you think they do.
Yeah. That's a great like see-through vision to the socials and to what you might see out there, that perception isn't necessarily fully accurate. And so what do? You sit down with them and you get to learn more about what they do. From a loan perspective, I think I have a couple of points. One, beware of internet rate advertisements.
Yeah. Just
beware of them, because they are advertisements. They're typically not time sensitive, and they're certainly not specific to your particular endeavor. And then the second thing is, don't fill out an application online without first talking to the person that is going to be guiding you through the process, so that you know, reflecting back to the things that I was talking about, how they work, what they do, what options they can provide you, and whether or not you feel like you can trust them. So those are the two tricks that I see a lot of people that I end up meeting with. They've already kind of done that, and they express a little regret, like, oh, I filled out a thing online, and then now no one will stop calling me. That kind of, like, it seems convenient, but just beware, take your time. You do not need to be in a hurry. Interview some people, work with someone you feel comfortable with.
And Jeremy, I'll even piggyback on top of that. after you're in a house and, you know, maybe you help represent a client and rates drop, then you have all those mailers that you get where up in the corner, you know, they know the name of the lender because it's on public records. And then they purport that like, hey, we're calling from the lender, rates have dropped down to 2%. And you're like, oh, and then you jump on that. So there's all kinds of tricks, even after you get into a house where they're going to try and steer you wrong. But once you have a consultant for life in any of these capacities, you know, hopefully you don't have to worry about that. You know, I get a lot of people that, that'll email me these flyers like, hey, is this the legit offer? You know,
that's my favorite.
Like, no, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, you have a mailer that goes out that looks like that, don't you?
I do. And thankfully the feedback I get on it is pretty good. Actually, it's horrible. It's horrible. I wanted to say kind of what, follow up on Jeremy and Craig's comments, we want to get into a conversation, right? You can't blame anybody for getting into a conversation. So you're going to get hammered if you fill out one of those online apps. You're going to get relentlessly pursued. Nothing wrong with getting into a conversation with somebody because we want those as well. But pay attention to that conversation. How is it going from the minute you get on the phone? What's the conversational tone? What is the agenda that you're feeling is being either pushed on you or not? And that tells you a lot about who you're dealing with on the other side.
Yeah, well said. You know, another thing that I'll add into this as well is a lot of people out there will think that, well, a real estate agent is, they're there to help me find the house. And, geez, that's maybe 15%. If I was to throw out a percentage, that might be 10 or 15% of, where I appear in any real estate transaction. It's like the iceberg. You only see, 10 or 15% of the bulk of it is under the water. But where the heavy lifting and the real work for real estate and for me as your consultant and negotiator comes from, once we get into contract and that process leading up to get us into contract. And with this shifting market right now, I mean, we've been on a hockey stick, on prices and also demand. It's, I don't even know what a buyer's market would even look like, where you can cut a deal. So almost every transaction we're up against multiple offers. And, being able to, and Jesse and I sit down on this all the time. It's like, what can we do? What's the next hack where we can get the attention of the listing agent? Because you got to win over the listing agent before you even have a chance at the seller. So how do we win over that listing agent first? But also, what are some of the things that we can build into the offer that is going to raise the eyebrow of both the listing agent and seller and go, oh, wow, well, that's interesting. That's interesting, and puts us, if they have 5 or 6 offers, we want to be one of the first, like 1 or 2 that the listing agent selects and kind of is like, hey, listen, I think this one's going to get us to the finish line. And then once we get into contract, sort of a juxtaposition between, things that we do is there's a second round of negotiations that's built into any contract, and that comes down to after you get the home inspection done, you got a request for repairs. And you could have an agent, that might be that friend or family members that gets you to the finish line and you're like, yeah, it was a pretty decent experience. I got into the house, got an accepted offer, and I got the keys at the end. Everything went great. But it's the small things that could have gone like better for you that you just, it's impossible to know, Could the agent, if you had shopped around to get somebody that is going to be, like Jesse said, like that ninja that can negotiate a request for repairs and get you, that's going to fight for that extra $100 credit for a request for repairs, or even up to $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000. So in that respect, you don't know what you don't know. in the end, you got the keys, but what could have happened, and how could the negotiating skills of the person that you didn't hire, how could that have benefit you significantly greater, maybe a lower purchase price to start with, and maybe a larger request for repairs credit during the transaction, to where when you get those keys at the end, it sort of comes back to Jesse's point earlier, you know, what was the most memorable part about working with an agent to you? And it might be like, oh, well, that $10,000 request for repairs credit, or, you know, beating out 7 offers and 2 of them were all cash. So those are the things that you need to find when you're looking for somebody to get out there and represent you.
And I'll color in on that too, just so that the person who's watching this or listening to this can appreciate the comment that you made. You made a very astute, wise comment about how, you know, the actual selecting of the home is only 10 to 15% of the overall value. And I just want to color that in a little bit so you can put it into context. The truth is that we have a 6-step process. And the truth is that you're doing 1 step at a time. And inside each of those steps, you're getting 100% of Craig and I, right? And from the real estate side, same thing from Jared and Dave on the mortgage side. So when it's selecting the homes, it's 100% of my value to you is how we do here at the Greenhouse Group, the unique approach and formulaic element of selecting the homes and getting you out there. And then once we do this our own specific way. And then we do this our own specific way. And so in each one of those steps, it's 100% of my value or Craig and I's value to you, so that it's not like, oh, it's only 15% is me there. No. Well, we're looking for the homes. That's 100% of my value for you. And what Craig is saying, with the spirit of it, is like memorable, being the hero. When you're done with the whole thing and you're panning back, the most memorable thing that they're going to say about Craig and I is not the art of the elbow position when you put the key into the door and you turned the lock when you opened it for me for the first time. Like, that's not our value ultimately, right? Like, yeah,
Craig is good at that though.
Quickly and doing the whole thing. Of course, that's going to be a huge part of it once we're there. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, you're going to find that there's so many more important nuances that are part of that iceberg underwater that you can't see on day one, while you're looking at the 15% that's sticking out of the water, trying to figure out who your best agent is. So well said well, Craig. Gang, anything else you guys want to do to wrap on this before we put a bow on it?
I feel like we slayed the dragon.
Yeah, I feel complete.
Cool.
Good to go.
All right, gang. So, hey, if you're just catching this out in some crazy internet webs, Wild West thing, just know the 4 members assembled here are part of the tribunal over at the Greenhouse Group. And so, you know, we are the highest rated, most 5-star reviewed real estate company in all of San Diego County. And we're also top 1% at what we do. Our niche is, drum roll for this conversation, right? First-time buyers, you know, first-time home sellers, and then folks always trying to get a good deal on their mortgage financing at all points in between. So excited to get a chance, hopefully, to be able to get into a conversation about you and your specific situation next. So hit us up, and we'll see you then. All right.
All right.
See ya.
See you later.